Why am I all of a sudden yellow? A common debate that has always been in the trans community, but I've seen spike recently or become, I don't know, more arisen. I don't know. Wordings are bad right now. Is the debate over whether you need dysphoria to be considered a member of the trans community. And as most debates, there are mainly two sides on this: those who believe that you do need dysphoria to be considered a transgender person, and those who believe that you do not need dysphoria to be a transgender person. And even further in that, it's sort of the debate: you need physical dysphoria, emotional, social dysphoria, blah, blah, blah. But what I'm talking about here is just dysphoria in general. It can be physical, it can be social, it can be emotional, because there are trans people out there who choose not to physically transition because they are comfortable the way they are and either don't want to medically transition or can't medically transition. But there's still dysphoria in there because they don't identify with the sex that they were assigned with at birth. The people that believe that you have to have dysphoria to be considered trans have been given this term called Transcum. And I don't know, it's kind of like weird. And it makes me wonder, am I Transcum? And I think from my point of view, and the way that I take most things, I have dysphoria. I've had physical dysphoria, I've had social dysphoria. I'm not exactly sure what would be counted as emotional dysphoria, but I've probably had that too. I have and had dysphoria. I don't know what it's like to not have dysphoria, but also in that I identify within the binary. I identify as male. I don't identify as non-binary. So I'm not going to say that you are wrong if you don't have dysphoria. I just don't necessarily understand what it's like to be a trans person and not have that. So I'm not going to disprove you and invalidate your identity, but I would like someone who is trans or identifies as trans but does not have any sort of dysphoria at all to talk to me so I can learn a little bit more about that. That's sort of my stance on it. But the question is, does that make me Transcum? There's no way that you can step into everyone's shoes and understand everything 100%. But as I said, I'm not going to disprove you. I'm not going to invalidate your identity. If you want to go that way, I'm going to identify you that way and just tell me why. But I think something also really, really important to consider is that there's a difference between gender identity and gender expression. And it's that question of, gender is a social construct. So what is to say that the dysphoria, I guess that's where social dysphoria would come from. It'd have to come from the gender stereotypes and gender expression attached with specific binary genders. And that's maybe where gender dysphoria socially is, rather than physically, because physically I'd say has to do more with secondary sex characteristics, and I guess just sex characteristics in general. This is a big topic, and I'm really confusing myself. But that's what's on my mind, and I want to know what you all think. So leave in the comments about your opinions on Transcum, if you think I might be Transcum, if you identify as trans and don't have any dysphoria whatsoever. I want to talk to you because I'm really interested in learning about this. And I think that's one thing that we can all do, and one thing that I try to do more in my life is to learn and educate. And rather than just shutting everybody down, being open and understanding from different points of view. And I've talked about this before, but one thing that I try my very hardest, and I get some really weird questions and conversations out of this, one in particular was very strange, is that the only way to educate and expand people's knowledge is to openly welcome those questions and not shut them down. And my point of view is, if someone comes to me with a question, and it may be asked ignorantly, or it may not be asked correctly, or it may be rude, if I believe that there is a genuine intent to learn and educate themselves, I will politely correct the person about their mishap and then continue to educate. Because if we just shut people down like that, then no education is going to be spread. And it writes a bad, it gives false presentation for any community if you just shut down hate with hate, because a lot of the time what's missing is correct education, and that's where ignorance comes from. It's coming from not knowing, and just a simple, hey, this is how you do it, or this is the polite way to ask, rather than just shutting it down. It's like, you're rude, blah, 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 because defenses go up, and it just becomes a battle of mean names and rude things back and forth.